We'll get stuck into it really. So a huge welcome to everyone who's joining in on the call. So today we will be focusing on the topic of relocating to New Zealand and teaching in New Zealand. So we will try and keep the webinar to 1 hour. We've got a fair few different time zones logging on, so I won't try and name all the different end times of the webinar itself. But if you look at about 60 minutes from now, that should be when the webinar finishes up. The webinar is being recorded too, so just as a friendly heads up. Yeah, just a huge thank you for everyone jumping on at varying times and wherever you are in the world. So kia ora. We're just going to do a little disclaimer here as well, just in terms of the webinar obviously is being recorded, so there is a chat function as well. So if you don't want to have your name pop up in the chat, or you don't want your we wouldn't recommend putting personal details into the chat or anything like that, but just make sure that you're aware that this is a recorded webinar and that your name may pop up, and we might use this webinar for future various reasons on different platforms, but just a friendly heads up for that one as well. Yeah, everyone's using the chat already, which is great. So make sure if you have any questions, please put them into the chat. Thanks for all the hellos as well. It's really exciting to see so many hellos coming in, which is awesome. And then we will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. We will try and manage the chat as best as possible, because there is a high volume. We may have to switch it just so we can manage it a little bit better, but everyone keep these questions coming in. I know Ash and Rach, who are on the chat duties today, are probably going, how are we going to get all these questions answered? But if we don't answer your question, it doesn't mean we don't value it. Just means we might come to it a little bit later on as well, or we might leave it to the end too. And if we don't answer your question, we will do our very best and utmost to get back to you following on from the webinar as well. So we'll keep moving through. But yeah, so really exciting webinar we've got in store for today. So the first point for everyone is that you're here, which is great, and you've got an interest to want to move to New Zealand, which is unbelievably exciting. And we'll do introductions in a sec, but Ash is actually in our New Zealand office right now from Christchurch, and yeah, we've obviously got a lot of fun in store for you today to learn about that journey over. So what we'll do is an introduction to our team at Prospero, introduce us on the call, a bit about our experience, because you may be speaking to one of us for your journey over to New Zealand, if that is able to be a possibility for yourself. We'll talk about why relocate to New Zealand. New Zealand's an amazing place. There's so much to offer there across both of the North and the South Island. But we'll talk about like the fun and the joy of living and moving overseas, the types of teaching roles available from early childhood, primary, secondary, SEN, the type of work too, whether it be fixed term or permanent contracts. What do you need to relocate to New Zealand? This is obviously a big one. So the compliance requirements, the visas, the teaching registrations, and more. Some of the steps involved, NZQA, IQA, a few acronyms to remember. You may not have heard of those, but you'll definitely be super familiar with them by the end of the call. Touch on the teacher's registration again, and then what support we offer candidates, and then where to from here and the next step. So that's obviously going to be a big one. Obviously, we hope everyone stays in for the full hour of the webinar, but you might already be thinking, how do I make this a reality? How can I move with myself, a friend, a partner, my family, all the way over to New Zealand? Because I know it is a big journey for a lot of people on the call. So we'll talk through as much of this as possible. We will share the slides after in the recording, as I mentioned, and just a friendly reminder, jump into the chat if anyone has any questions at all. So introduction, so you know who it is that's talking on the other end of this Zoom call. So my name is Tyler, and I'm the International Recruitment Manager here at Prospero Group. So my role is supporting candidates, teachers to travel between Australia, the UK, and then obviously New Zealand. I'm based in Australia, so if you're probably thinking that's a funny accent for someone who's a Kiwi, I'm not a Kiwi, I am in Australia, but obviously support candidates and teachers making the journey over to NZ. I've been working in recruitment for about 7 years now, across Australia, the UK, and then back now into Australia. So I lived in London for 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. So I've had that experience of living and relocating overseas. Personally, it was one of the best decisions I ever made, was going to uproot my life and go live on the other side of the world. And I'm absolutely passionate about helping people make that same journey. And hopefully that can be the same for everyone on this call. and originally a teacher too. So I've been in the classroom a long time ago now, actually. About 7 years ago, I stopped teaching, but originally a PE health teacher, and I taught in Melbourne and in London as well, about a year in each. So yeah, know what it likes to be in front of the classroom. And yeah, that's me. So we'll throw to Ash and then Rach to do the introductions there. And thanks, guys, everyone, for saying hello in the chat too. It's so refreshing to see so many people jumping in. So keep them coming.
Well, morena, which is good morning, from New Zealand. As Tyler mentioned, I'm sitting in our New Zealand Christchurch-based office, so lovely to have everyone join us. A little bit about myself. I'm the talent acquisition specialist, but also compliance lead here in the office. And I've also been in the teaching sector myself, teaching specifically in the early childhood area for about 7 years, and then also in educational recruitment itself, working across early childhood and primary for probably almost 4 years now. Similar to Tyler, I've been out of the teaching classroom itself for probably about 6 years now, and enjoying getting to know teachers like yourselves coming in to New Zealand, and then also working with a lot of teachers already in country at the moment, looking to change their journey, going from early childhood and primary roles, whether it be sort of developing their career and looking for new challenges, or just starting out as well. Those are that, are still teachers in training, new graduates who are just joining the sector. But yeah, love being in New Zealand, and happy to sort of share some light of what it's like in New Zealand, and, answer any questions as we go.
Nice. And Rach.
Hi guys, my name's Rachel. I'm the International Candidate Manager over here in London. So hello to everyone who's also over my side on our evening today. I've been in recruitment for a year prior to Prospero. I was doing finance recruitment, so a little bit different to education, but I'm absolutely loving the education sector of things. It's an absolute quite rewarding experience to be able to see all these teachers who are wanting to go over to New Zealand and Australia. So, but yeah, that's just a little bit thing about me. I unfortunately don't come from any education background. I'm just more on the recruitment side of things. But yeah, my specialty is to help all you guys from UK and South Africa to head on over to New Zealand and start an incredible life over there.
Amazing. Thanks for that, guys. And we're really excited to obviously find out a bit more about you. So us at Prospero, we want to learn about each individual. Like, we've got a lot of people on the call now, which is exciting, but we want to make sure that we've got a good relationship with everyone, so we can get to know you on that personal level. So we'll start off with the poll. Hopefully this works. We do have a few polls across. So if everyone can just obviously just answer in the poll where you're from. I know when we're looking at the where people were tuning in from when they signed up, pardon me, there was a lot from South Africa and the UK. UK and Ireland, so we've sort of bunched you guys together. So if everyone just wants to post into there, we'll give you all just another minute or two. And these polls are really helpful as well. Like, everyone, you may have registered with Prospero or with us or not, or you may have only just started hearing about us, whatever that is. But these answers do help us a lot in part of the follow-up as well. So if everyone listening on the call, please do make sure you do answer to the polls as well. There will be a survey after this too, of course. So but yeah, just want to make sure everyone, whenever you can, just answer those poll questions are really helpful. Amazing. So we got just under about 250 people answered, which is really exciting. So hopefully I'm going to share the results. Can everyone see the results now on their screen, I hope? Amazing. So we've got about half from South Africa, and then about 28% from in the UK and Ireland, and then elsewhere in Africa about 10%, and then around Asia, Middle East, etc., and then Europe too. Awesome. So great. That stopped sharing now. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. Okay. How good is it when technology works? As we're all teachers, I'm sure everyone's thinking sharing screen, doing polls. We're thinking back to where you're a secondary teacher or not, whatever it is. But I'm glad it's working. So we've got there so far. And Rachel, audio worked fine then. So it was a little bit lag on the video, but the audio worked all good. So Cool. So you might be thinking at this point, why Prospero? Obviously, you've jumped onto a webinar with us as well, which is really exciting. You may have heard of us, or you may not have heard of us. Which at this point, obviously, we just want to give you the full insights into us as a team and as a business. So we've got it's about 25 years of industry experience for supporting candidates for work within education. We also work outside of the education sector in health and social care, but we're going to focus in on education, of course. And we started off in the UK, and then we branched out to Australia and into New Zealand about 6 years ago now. So we've got one office in Australia, in Sydney. I'm actually working remotely down in Victoria, whereas in New Zealand, we've got an office in Christchurch, but we do support with roles across New Zealand, which we'll talk about in the next couple of slides. Joining us will help you join a global network and global community of teachers that we've been able to support over these past 20 years for roles across the world. And we offer personalized recruitment as well. And I love that little bit, less stress, more travel. So we take we give you a lot of support, essentially, is one way to look at it. So we've got a lot of resources, a lot of insights, sort of industry knowledge that we'll go through in future slides. And it's a completely free service as well. And there isn't a strings attached to that at all. So we don't charge for our service. You might be then thinking, how does Prospero run as a business if we don't get charged? So we do have a partnership and relationships with our clients, schools and early childhood education centres, and that's where the costs go. So no costs to everyone on the call. So it is a completely free service for candidates. That's pretty much us. So we'll obviously give you more insights into us as a team and as a business, but that's us in a snapshot. But that personalised recruitment, we endeavour to do that as much as possible throughout your entire journey with us. I'm hoping that New Zealand is an option, of course. There are teaching requirements and qualification requirements, which we'll go through. So if for whatever reason New Zealand doesn't end up being the pathway, maybe it is the qual doesn't work out for the NZQA, or maybe you decide that Australia is where you want to go, or maybe it's the UK. That's totally fine as well. We want to support your journey wherever you go. So you just keep us in the loop with where you want to move to, and then we'll obviously give you the best service we can offer to get you there. And hopefully it is New Zealand, because we're all on the Teach New Zealand webinar. So nice. And then Rach, you're out of Ash and I, you're the only one who's actually living and breathing as an expat overseas. So talk to everyone on the call why people might want to relocate and teach abroad.
Well, I mean, I've been here for nearly going on 7 years now, so I definitely am biggest advocate for living abroad. I believe that it's one of the best things you could ever do for yourself, especially those of you who have young families. I think that's an incredible experience for kids as well, to have a bit of a mixture cultural experience growing up. That, my biggest advocate of it as well. But it's for New Zealand, especially coming from UK and South Africa, like the personal growth is just endless. The opportunities, the teaching opportunities, the career development, but overall, I think it's the travel, the experience, the sunshine. Living over here for the past couple of years, I think you just can't beat that sunshine, and those beaches and experience, the food, but overall, I believe, it's something that you could really do and you would benefit from. It's not always going to be for everyone, but I think if you can walk away from it saying that you had a go, I think why not?
100%. I think that's my biggest takeaway from that. Just have a go at it. Like, obviously, it's going to be a different route for everyone. Like, some people might be relocating with their family, or might be relocating solo. Everyone's going to have different reasons for traveling. But yeah, the biggest thing which we can give is just give it a go. If you don't like it, it's always a flight home. Very rarely does anyone ever move overseas and they don't enjoy it. But you do have to step out of your comfort zone as well, because it's not exactly easy relocating over to the other side of the world. You got to definitely, put yourself out there and meet new people and be in your environment. But it's definitely worth the while. Which means we got another poll as well. So why do you want to move to New Zealand? So we've got a few options here, and you can multi-select on this one if we have set it up correctly. So because there's not always going to be one reason. So like if you just listed personal growth, you might also want to explore New Zealand. So don't necessarily list every single one if you don't want to, but you definitely can. This is going to be really interesting for everyone to see on the call, why people might be wanting to make that journey over. And if you don't have a reason here as well, that's not listed, there is essentially like endless reasons. Post it into the chat as well if you feel like your reason's not there. So you'd be more than happy to do that too.
Exciting to see why everyone's sort of looking to potentially move abroad to New Zealand.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? All right. So I'll end the poll now. Sorry, guys, if you're just about to. And then I'll share the results as well so everyone can see that too. Amazing. So good, guys. So we got career professional development, lifestyle change, wanting to gain residency in New Zealand as well. So really, really good mix there, which is awesome. So nice. So I'll stop sharing screen and I'll throw to Ash. Perfect. Why New Zealand, and I guess like where to go in New Zealand as well?
Yeah, so why New Zealand? Well, I'm going to be a little bit biased being in New Zealand myself and have been my entire life. So haven't had the moving or teaching abroad side of things for myself, but encourage you to move abroad and come to New Zealand. But no, New Zealand's a great place to be. Obviously, we work across the board. We've got a lot of positions within sort of Auckland and the Wellington sort of region within our North Island, which those that like the warmer weather, probably the North Island might be more for you. But if you're wanting to hit the slopes and sort of see a lot more of the lakes and the mountains and things like that, coming down to the South Island where we've got Christchurch, Dunedin, Queenstown. But yeah, the whole of New Zealand is beautiful. I've lived in the North and the South Island myself. So I've been in the East Coast, and then also in Tauranga region, which is the Bay of Plenty, and then now down in Christchurch. So yeah, beautiful country. Obviously education is ranked 11th globally. We've also got a great safe country to live in. So those that, are wanting to move over, even traveling alone or with family, being able to walk around in most areas, obviously in New Zealand, you're always going to have small areas that may not be as favourable, but majority of New Zealand, I can walk out of my door at home and go for a walk, even on dark or in the morning, and feel very comfortable. So great neighbourhood as well, usually a good community. Also really friendly culture. I know, speaking from someone who's been in both ends of the island, a great culture, and you'll be sort of bringing on a lot of tikanga Māori and Māori culture here in New Zealand too. But yeah, great family, sort of great place to be if you're traveling alone too. We've got pathway to residency options as well, but we'll kind of cover that a little bit later on as we look to go through the sort of visa options too. But at the moment as well, we've got that 10,000 overseas relocation grant still on the cards too, which obviously is ending sort of mid-year. We haven't had any information of whether that's extending just yet, and we're hoping it does, so fingers crossed. We hadn't had any little birdies whispering in our ears yet about what's going to happen there, but obviously that's still there, which gives you an opportunity between our sort of mid-term 2 positions, if there's still any sort of going at that time, through to term 3 being in country.
Amazing. Thanks so much for that, Ash. And just wanted to make a note also on the immigration piece. There are some the visa questions, because there are a few questions popping up in the chat around that too. Just wanted to let everyone know that at Prospero Teaching, we're not a licensed immigration advisor, so we can't give advice on your specific visa situation. We recommend going to the New Zealand Gov immigration websites, which we'll send a few links during the webinar and also part of the follow-up. And we'll talk a little bit about a licensed immigration partner that we do have that might be able to support your journey as well. But we just wanted to let everyone know that we're not yet licensed immigration advisors, so it's just all guidance that we can give without introducing the topics of the visas itself. Awesome. Well, just a note on this one too, like on the locations, I just wanted to put in, the more flexible you are, the better in a way, because if you're like quite set on wanting to live in Queenstown and you don't want to hear about any other in Christchurch or Wellington or Auckland as an example, it's not to say that we wouldn't be able to support you with the role in Queenstown. However, there's only X amount of schools within certain areas. So if you do have family in certain areas and you want to move, that's totally understandable. But if you do have the ability to be a bit more flexible, it does help our team out a lot, because we have a team of consultants that support that we work together with on our team. The team, which is Rachel and Ash and myself and Jeremy, another one of the team members. So yeah, just let us know if you have a set preference, but be flexible because it does help us a lot in terms of where we could potentially place you into a role.
Yeah, because we will have limitations, obviously, with those, and especially as we sort of navigate some of the roles that we may have, which we'll cover later on, and we can kind of go through what that might look like for you. But yeah, great point, Tyler. Thank you.
Yeah, all good.
All right, what services do we provide? So we obviously are supporting teachers with the CV side of things, giving you tips and guidance with what we think would give our clients skills, and also us, since we want to see yourself put your best foot forward. And also, as we navigate your journey together, when we communicate about what it is that you're looking for, we want to see that CV timeline. So obviously we want to give you as much support around creating a strong CV. So we give advice around that. Then also that placement side of things, with what type of roles we have, like Tyler mentioned about locations as well. That's something that we would kind of discuss, and discuss your preferences, and then also what that might look like in real time, and whether there's going to be potential opportunities or what those barriers might be. So giving advice around all of those things. Arranging interviews for you as well. So once we've had those conversations, our consultants, so you'd be speaking with likes of myself or Rachel, talking about all of those things prior. And then also we have consultants in the office that directly communicate with principals, centre managers, those that are on panels that are in those centres and schools. So we'll be arranging interviews on your behalf based on what we've discussed. So obviously be liaising between yourself and our clients to support you in navigating that and providing you as much information as possible when we go through that process. But also once you're placed with us, so if you secure a job offer, you're relocating, we're obviously navigating that with you and sort of checking in. But also once you are in a position, we're here to support you through that. So obviously we want to check in with you. We want you to check in with us as well. Let's keep that sort of reciprocal and open communication about sort of how things are going, because we can obviously navigate that together when we're going through that process. If you've got any sort of queries or things that are popping up that you're not used to perhaps, or you want to figure out sort of where to next, when you've got things going on potentially, who to communicate with within, your school or your centre, but also to hopefully hear how things are going in a good sense as well. Are you enjoying the move? Have you found a role that you love? What's your placement like? And just offering that sort of holistic support. But on top of that, as we go through those processes, we've got documents which you can see Tyler sort of flicking through just on the side. We've got documents that support you as well. So, we've got interview preparation support, we've got guidance with checklists. So we offer all these other documents as well that we can provide you within your first early part of your application with us, but also as we go through that process. So whether it be our accreditation guide, a relocating to New Zealand guide, which gives you a little bit of information like we covered before on each of those locations, setting up, ID, banks, all those kind of things. So these guides, are really there as sort of, I suppose, a little Bible of support. Obviously it's not everything, but in a small little nutshell, it's going to cover a few basic things and what we would be able to sort of support you with, hopefully.
Amazing. Thanks, Ash. And now we're over to Rach. Just a quick one, Rach, before you jump in. I know a few people did say there was audio. A couple of people said it wasn't coming in clear. Sometimes if you leave the Zoom and then come back in, it can help. So yeah, maybe that might help for a few people. Said the audio is not clear because it is coming in clear through for us. So, but Rach, sorry, just you jump in now.
Okay, great. Sorry if my audio is a bit it just seems to be a bit lagging, but we'll get there. So our teaching opportunities. So we have 4 predominantly. We have, the early childhood education, which is your nursery and preschool teaching, that is from 0 to 5 ages. Your primary education, which is your intermediate ages of 5 to 11, moving through to secondary education, which is 11 to 17. And this is where the specialisation comes in, whether you specialise in English, maths, sciences, physical education, and arts and tech. And obviously, yes, it would be great if you guys did have your dual specialisation as well. So please mention all of that when we have a chat with you. And then we have the special ed. So the special education is for children that need extra learning support. And we have a section for both primary and also secondary. So whether or not you specialize in your primary or your secondary teaching, and then you also have that additional special education certificate to be able to teach for the special education as well. So that's predominantly year 4 that we've got.
Amazing. Thanks so much for that, Rach. And we really want to, like we said, to touch on the theme, learn about everyone else on the call, or everyone on the call, sorry. So another poll. We love polls here, in case you haven't noticed. So what type of teacher are you? So in New Zealand, we can only support with our qualified teachers. So if you are a non-qualified teacher, it may be that we would have to look to potentially start a conversation around supporting you in another country, such as the UK. Yeah, it looks like we've got a pretty good amount of primary and secondary teachers and a few early childhood teachers on the call as well. So, which is really exciting. So we'll give everyone else just a few moments just to finish off answering the questions. And feel free to post into the chat what type of teacher you are as well. But in terms of like if you're a maths teacher or PE teacher, or if you're a lower primary, upper primary. Nice. So we'll end that poll now, share the results. So we got more secondary teachers, which is exciting. I know Georgia, the branch manager for New Zealand, manages the relationships with a lot of our secondary schools, and I know she would be very excited to see that, which is exciting. So definitely post your subjects in there for those secondary teachers. I know Georgia's on the call, and she'll be picking up the phone as soon as the school's open here in New Zealand, telling them we've had a webinar, even though it is school holidays. She probably won't be doing that, but nice, awesome. Is it back to the slides, everyone? Yeah, cool. Sorry. Back to you, Rach, or not back to you, Rach. You continue on.
So we've got sort of your 2 type of options available for everyone. So we've got start with our fixed term. So your fixed term are for all those ones who are going to be coming over on the working holiday visa, which is predominantly all UK goers. So the fixed term can range anywhere between a month to essentially 12 months. There's sort of maternity, paternity, or sick cover. That's generally what the cover you will be doing. But this is for your fixed term, for your working holiday visas. Your working holiday visas, we'll talk about that further down the line on the webinar, but you guys can't really get the permanent side. So fixed term is what you'll be going for. It is a really great start for you guys if you're not too sure which way you want to go or where you want to be, and if you're open to different types of locations. Fixed term is great for that because you've got the ability to chop and change. With that as well, you can get a great experience and popping on your CV, once you've got your New Zealand experience. So it just gives you a bit more credibility and flexibility, but also, with the career development with that, with your New Zealand experience. Your permanent is, I think a lot of people do generally do go forward for more permanent just because of the job security and the sustaining relationships and pathways. But yeah, you can get also the extra career development. So all the ones that will probably be on your sponsorship, the accredited working visa, you'll probably be predominantly on the permanent pathways with the potential of the fixed term as well. But yeah, so there's those 2 we generally do go into. So everyone, you've got 2 options really open, except for your working holiday visas, unfortunately.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for that, Rach. And we'll talk through the visas in a moment, because I know that's a big question for everyone as well. And this just gives you good guidance into the type of work available. So there, with Prospero, there isn't any casual teaching available. So it would be either a fixed term or a permanent role. The working holiday visas, you would have to start off on this fixed term. If you want to stay, you're loving it, you're from the UK or Ireland, you're like, this is great, I never want to leave New Zealand. It can lead to a permanent contract, and there's pathways to residency as well. Amazing. So everyone might be thinking, all good, Rach.
There was some people questioning, you can go for these things in the chat. Fixed term can lead to your permanent. So don't think that you haven't got those options as well. If you really love the school, you never know, you could get an opportunity to go permanent from that school on a fixed term contract as well.
Spot on. Right. Amazing. Okay, so good. So these are some term dates. So we've got the 2024 option arrival options here. And then we've also got and actually, apologies, the dates are wrong on this. So don't look at the dates, just look at the, almost block it out in your mind, these dates here, because I actually realize they're incorrect. But the arrival time is important. So if you don't look at the exact dates, and that's, we'll just take away the term. So down here in Australia and New Zealand, I know South Africa is the same. The terms aren't the same as what it is over in the UK. So the academic year from September to July. In Australia and New Zealand, it runs from the calendar year. So we're entering into term 2 in the next couple of weeks. And the move itself, the biggest thing for this, it's going to have to be the right time for you, and then also when that could coincide with an opportunity or a role as well. So it's going to be a bit of a blend there. The biggest thing for us would be if you can plan your trip and you are able to go and you've got your NZQA, which you talk about, and you're ready to go, let us know, and you could potentially arrive in term 3 in the next couple of months if you've progressed in the process. But we'll talk about how it does take time to move to New Zealand. It's not something you can just do overnight. It does take months to apply for the relevant checks. But term 1 is a really, really good time to arrive. So if term 3 and term 4 is too soon, term 1, and it can take up to 8 months to go through the checks and everything to move to New Zealand as well. So if you're thinking January next year is when you can go, amazing. If your document ready, if you got your NZQA approved, if you got your teacher's registration, term 3, term 4, definitely on the cards as well. So don't discredit these terms if you're already set up and pretty much ready to go. Would use the frame document ready. Yeah, that's obviously a really good option as well. Term 1 2026, you might be thinking that is so far away, it's almost just under 2 years away. It is a big move, and we get it doesn't happen overnight. Some people might even be thinking 2027, 2028. That's fine. We're not wanting to rush anyone to move. Has to be the right time for you, and then that will ideally coincide with a role and a position as well. And we just got to meet that match too. We can't guarantee a position as well for candidates coming over on the accredited employer visa, which we'll talk about. Obviously, it is a sponsorship visa essentially if you can't get a working holiday visa. So we'll do all we can to present you to schools and give you all the support that's needed. But it does come down to a school taking on your opportunity, which can affect your arrival date as well. But just keep us in the loop with your plans. Let us know when you're wanting to go, and no better time to ask when you're wanting to go than to launch a poll as well. So if everyone can just sorry, it's taking a little second. I lost the polls. They're back. All right. Can everyone just answer the questions as the polls will do, and just let us know when you're looking to go.
Definitely recommend if you're looking for a term 3 or role, you definitely need your NZQA and everything sort of in process at least, and probably completed, and then that registration. Obviously, we can hopefully try and fast track that for you if you are successful and have an offer, but obviously needing those documents as soon as possible.
100%. Thanks for that, Ash. Amazing. So I'm conscious of as much as we love the polls, I'm just conscious of time as well to move through them as quick as we can. We've got about 25 minutes to go, but we're smashing it, everyone. Thanks so much for giving all these answers. So we've got a mix here. So Jan 2025, the big one, term 1, a few ASAP as well. So like I said, the ASAP, the next couple of slides, we'll talk through this in more detail about how to make this journey into a reality for everyone. So perfect. Cool. All right. Nice. Let's keep moving through. So we've talked about, why, a little bit about the when, the who. Now it's going to be a bit more about like the how and the what, if you would, to talk about like how you can actually move to New Zealand, and if it is possible for you as well, because there are barriers and checks in place that we haven't put in place, that the New Zealand government has. So we are bound behind those parameters. So the first step from here, well, the first step you're on the webinar as well, which is great. So from here, we will provide everyone the opportunity to register with Prospero and submit your details, send us your CV in a form of a survey. We'll do that after the webinar. So the biggest call to action from this will be to make sure you fill in the survey after the webinar. And then we'll want to know if you've got your NZQA and teacher's registration approved. And we'll talk about this in more detail in the next couple of slides. But then in theory from then, if you don't have it done, obviously we'd encourage you to apply for that. That can take up to 4 months, and this should be the first step that you complete. Once that's done, you can then go to your teacher's registration. See the timescales on this. It's up to and between. We can't guarantee it. It is the New Zealand education authorities that dictate the applications. We can just send you the links essentially and give you the tips and support on what documents you need, but the government will go through that with you essentially in the application process. If you're looking for an interview, which in theory everyone on the call should hopefully be, then this would usually take place after you've got your teacher's registration, not before you've got your NZQA or anything. In some instances that may be the case, but it's quite rare. Schools will want to know that you're approved to teach and work in New Zealand. So that these steps are usually the big steps to get the ball rolling with everything. And then if you're on a working holiday visa, the immigration step can happen like sort of in between this, in theory, if you're from the UK, because we'll talk about the working holiday visa in a moment. But if you are from a country such as South Africa, which I know there's a lot of people on the call from South Africa, you can't start your immigration right to work until you've got a job offer, which we'll talk through in more detail. So these steps here will come with that job offer if it is able to come to yourself, and that comes from a school. And then police vetting is one thing which everyone will need to get, police checks from your relevant country. And then EdPay as well, we'll talk about. That's the pays dictated and mandated from the New Zealand authorities. And then hopefully after you've done these 6 steps, and we'll revisit this at the end of the webinar, arrive in New Zealand as well. And we got some really good resources to just talk through all these steps in more detail, documents you need. And we'll go through these in the next few slides. But if you're scrounging around, taking notes, thinking, how am I going to remember all this information? There's so much to remember. And it can be a little bit complicated as well. So if you're scratching your head a little bit, even at the end of the webinar, that's fine. Ash has been doing this specifically for nearly 4 years now. And I know Ash still has questions. I've been doing this for a few years now. I always have questions. No one's a complete expert, so don't sweat. And this one here, we just wanted to make a note that Ash mentioned we can fast track applications if you do get a job offer. And there is a huge volume of applicants as well. You can see we've got over nearly 350 people signed into the webinar. Whilst we are not a tiny team, we're not like the largest team. We don't have 350 consultants. So if there is a delay in us getting back to you, we apologize in advance. Don't think we don't value your application. It just means that we're having to work through applications, and we're driven by the needs of our schools as well in our centres. So if we've got set sort of vacancies and those type of teachers are applying, then that might mean we have to prioritize those teachers, just obviously because that's working off the needs that we do have from our schools. And if you're document ready, that helps jump the queue essentially, because that means you're good to go in many respects. Cool,
Great.
Nice. That's
I see a few questions coming in around NZQA and EdPay, which we're going to cover very shortly, so bear with us.
Yeah, nice. This is Ash as well. Yep.
Yes. It's a compliance, my little baby, really. So similar to what you're doing with your teacher's registration, is pretty much what we're going to need as well. So my recommendation, if you can, on your computer, maybe on a hard drive stick, having all your documents with you for things that you would be already putting towards your teacher's registration, and then you can have a little file for everything that goes into registration, and then also for your application with us. We've obviously got compliance that we need to meet safeguarding checks. This is for us and our process, but also on behalf of our clients, centres and schools. So we're obviously going to be requesting your CV, which we touched on earlier, and making sure that you have that employment history. And then we're also going to be needing identification, so 2 forms of ID. Being that you're moving over to New Zealand, one must be your passport. Then we're also going to need to complete reference checks. Now those obviously look different for everyone depending on sort of where they're at in their process. And some of you may not have shared that with your employer as of yet. So obviously trying to get as most recent as possible managerial referees. So that will be your 2 ICs, principals, department heads, and things like that. So we'd be looking for managerial referees, and then at some point in your process we're still going to need to complete a current managerial referee, but we'll cross that together as we go through your specific application as well. But just to bear that in mind, that those managerial referees are required to go through that process for safeguarding purposes, and we have a few questions that we go through with them directly. And then obviously we need your qualifications. If you're going through the NZQA process, would need a copy of your NZQA, making sure that you're meeting the requirements that are supposed to be noted on there, which is in conversation as well. We quite often ask you if you've had that process already completed or not, and what that outcome was, and if it met core requirements. If not, obviously asking for the discretionary pathway process if you have obtained registration already. So also having a photo of yourself is great. We want to obviously see you and your smiling face, but also quite often our clients, schools and centres want to see potentially a picture of yourself as well, to have a complete overall picture of your application altogether. And then obviously just needing to know when you're wanting to travel, like we put in the poll before, whether you're looking to move as soon as possible, whether you're flexible. We sometimes have mid-term 2 positions, for instance. So, you know, are you available in the next month? Or would you be looking for term 3, term 4, or looking to move term 1 of next year and so on. So it's important that we understand your arrival dates and when that's going to be. You know, if you sort of just say whenever at any time you're being offered a role, what does that actually look like? Do you have a term's notice period? Do you have a month's notice period? All of those play factors. What kind of visa you're potentially looking for if you're in the process of NZQA, all of those have implications on that sort of timeline. So it's important for us to know when you're looking to arrive.
That's amazing. And as we go through these next few slides, I'm going to send in, Ash is going to drive the next couple of slides. I'll send in a few links because there's a lot of questions around how do I do this? What's the NZQA in more detail? So I will share links as Ash goes over this next little bit too. So feel free to bookmark these links, save them, do whatever you like with them. But this will give you a bit more context into these next few slides, which is a bit more of the nitty gritty if you would have moved in.
Awesome. So yes, NZQA is a requirement for anyone coming through into New Zealand. NZQA is New Zealand Qualifications Authority, and that just showcases whether your qualification meets the New Zealand requirements. So there is a section within NZQA. You can go onto the website and see if your qualification is pre-approved. So you can enter in the country you studied, the university, and then check your actual qualification. There is also a set criteria. So you need to make sure that you are specific and actually looking at that criteria. So the year that it was obtained, whether it has a particular wording on it as well. So checking that criteria. If it is not on there, then it does not meet the pre-approval, and that is only for primary, secondary as well. So an IQA assessment would need to be obtained, and unfortunately we can't give you any guidance in terms of what that qualification outcome might be. The odd time we know from some similar qualifications that have come through, so we might be able to guide you there. But quite often we don't want to give you wrong advice in terms of that, because we don't assess the qualification itself, because it does come down to how long you've studied, your placements, all those kind of things. So just bear that in mind, that the NZQA, the IQA would be needed to, you know, be eligible for a role if it's not. That next process is then teachers registration. So we'll move into that slide as well.
I just sent through a link to the pre-approved list as well, and then I sent through a link
okay.
for the IQA application too.
Lovely. Thanks, Tyler. So yeah, the cost, I know I've seen a few questions come through around costs, which is roughly around 746 New Zealand dollars. And like I mentioned, it is that pre-approved qualification side of things. So checking that pre-approval, that IQA assessment, making sure you have the teacher add-on as well. That's important, because you'll see if you've ever gained IQA assessment before and you haven't done that, it'll just stipulate whether it was a bachelor level 7. That teacher add-on is another paragraph underneath, which stipulates whether it met core requirements in a particular sector. So whether it be early childhood and primary, or primary and secondary. And that's what we need to see. And so, yeah, if not on that pre-approved list, an IQA assessment would be required. And that teacher's registration. So like I mentioned before, gather those documents. Those are documents we'll also require as well for your application. That cost, there's a couple of sort of variables there. So roughly between 465 to 564 to complete that. You to be eligible for a teaching position in New Zealand, and especially through many of the visa pathways, especially the accredited employers work visa, registration is required. And to complete that, you would need valid police clearance. So just bearing in mind when you last completed that and making sure that it's valid for registration. You'll also need to make sure when your visa comes around as well, if you gained your registration 8 months ago and you said you did a police check for that, you're most likely going to need another one still for your visa. So just bear that in mind. Same thing again, proof of identification, possibly an English language test if applicable. So check the registration requirements around that. You'll also need work appraisals, proof of your qualifications again, and those transcripts, which will state how long you studied, placements, all those kind of things, and then those reference letters as well.
Amazing. And again, the teachers registration, that link has gone into the chat, everyone. So yeah, well, you'll get all this through the process with us, but definitely bookmark these, because the sooner you get started on, in particular the NZQA, the more knowledge you have around these topics, the better, essentially. So, which is hence the point of the webinar. So,
and especially because that NZQA can take quite some time. We see varying time differences from 3 months right through to 6 months. So that's the most important step. That next one, hopefully, if you are offered a job through us, that we might be able to fast track that for you. But also, that's not a guarantee as well. It depends on the time of year and how busy the Teachers Council are themselves. But we'll quickly go into salary expectations. I know there's a few questions around that. That median wage for the accreditation side of things for early childhood is 31.61 New Zealand dollars. Then that primary and secondary, that's through EdPay. So EdPay is a government agency. We have no say or movement when it comes to pay rates within primary and secondary. The EdPay will assess your salary themselves, so they take into consideration qualification, tenure, all those kind of things. So unfortunately, we can't sort of navigate that for you. We obviously have guides which are from the ministry with steps and sort of calculations there, but we wouldn't be able to give you an exact sort of figure of what that might be, because that's up to them to assess that for you.
And Ash, I'm terribly sorry, Ron. I forgot a poll in the last slide. I can't believe it. So
we can go back to that.
Yeah, so apologies, we jumped the gun, but it's fine though, because yeah, it's definitely all the content's really valuable. But we just wanted to know where everyone's at with the process. So hopefully everyone can see that, but just let us know. And if you haven't heard of the NZUK, that's fine. You could just list you haven't applied, because yeah, naturally that would be the answer. But please let us know where you're at, because this will help us out. You'll get these questions again in the follow-up survey too, which we really encourage everyone to make sure you're filling that out. But knowing where you're at in the process is really helpful for us to then know how we can support your journey, and what sort of documents you should be receiving, and next steps and timescales and everything as well. So if everyone can just answer that poll. We got about a little bit over 10 minutes to go. So we'll the next couple slides, we won't rush them, but we might have to just not spend as long on them, not to devalue those slides. I just don't want everyone to go too long into the evenings. We know it is quite late in some parts of the world as well. Awesome. So I'll end that poll now, but thank you everyone. So we've got a bit of a mix, which is interesting. So we've got about 35 people that have started the application process, or a little bit more, but then the overwhelming amount haven't applied yet. Totally fine as well. That's a good reason why you would be jumping on the webinar to learn more about the move. So biggest takeaway will be just jump onto those NZQA links, start applying for the process first, and then let us know where you're at with that process as well.
And that could also be when we touched on previously in one of the slides that Tyler mentioned about that sort of vacancies and where we're at as well, and vacancies that come through and working on teachers' applications. That could also come down to not being quite document ready, and unfortunately we might not be able to navigate that just yet for you. So obviously those are key things to get in process as soon as possible, so that we've got better chances of sort of moving along your application and trying to work on that for you.
Amazing. And then the visas too. So as mentioned, this is guidance and introduction to the visas. This can't be treated as tailored advice for an individual on the call. So essentially, there's three main options for a lot of people coming over. There are a couple other nuances, but these are the most common. So you've got the working holiday visa, which we'll talk through each of these in the next couple of slides, but just introducing it. And then we've got the accredited employer work visa, which is essentially a sponsorship visa when you're not eligible for a working holiday visa and you don't have the ability to obtain a partner visa, of course. If you are a partner, or you're coming over as a couple or whatever it is, or even your partner has a role outside of education and is going through the accredited employer visa, whatever it is, you can come over on as a partner with a few, you likely can come over as a partner visa on the accredited, but not on the working holiday, which we'll talk about in a sec. And we're partnered with a legal immigration advisor and you're consulting, and they can assist yourself through the process in detail and give you that tailored support, which we technically aren't allowed to give. Cool. So the first one, working holiday visa. So it's age limited, and from up to select countries, it's up to 35, but there is a lot that it's up to 30. You can live and travel into New Zealand for up to 12 months, Canadians 23 months, UK nationals 36, to highlight a couple, but there are some other differences there as well for some other nationalities that can stay for longer. But the UK nationals can stay up for 3 years now due to the free trade agreement. It's the same thing here in Australia, and same thing for Aussies and Kiwis coming to the UK too. You can only work in fixed term contracts, so you can't get a permanent role on a working holiday visa, but it can lead to a contract on a permanent role if you wanted to go through the accredited employer visa. You can't travel with dependents on the working holiday visa. You can on the accredited. Processing time, around about 12 weeks, usually can be longer, can be quicker. You need to have a bit over 4,000 New Zealand dollars in your bank account as a proof of funds to support yourself. And it costs estimated about $455. These costs not regularly, but like they do often change. Yeah, this is what the cost currently is today, and the same for the accredited employer visa on the next slide. I will send across a couple of links. This one in the chat, the link I'm sending, gives you the overview. So if you're unsure, the link I just sent will help you go onto the New Zealand immigration website and then find out which visa is relevant for you specifically. And then the accredited employer work visa. So if you're not eligible for a working holiday visa, this will highly likely be the visa you would make the journey over to New Zealand on. It's dependent upon a job offer, as we mentioned. So you need to get a job offer from a school, and you need to be under the age of 55 to be able to successfully apply for accredited employer visa. You need to have your NZQA teachers registration approved. So those are the big gatekeepers, the big steps to getting in New Zealand in education. You can travel with your partner and dependents. There are application processes that need to go through that. And if you've got like what defines a dependent and everything like that is all defined on the New Zealand immigration websites. But you can come over with your family on the accredited employer visa, which I know can be a big thing for a lot of people moving from certain countries. You want to make sure that you can relocate with your family naturally. And you apply through the immigration, and then it can fast track. You can get residency through this pathway, and then secondary teachers have had a fast track option as well. So all the secondary teachers on the call, which I know there is a lot more, it's a lot easier to get permanent residency now in New Zealand, which is really exciting. So Georgia, again, I'm pretty sure still on the call, should be like, yes, lots of secondary teachers. We want to make sure we can support you guys making the journey over, and costs about $750 as well, and that's on top of the NZQA and the teaching registration costs and everything like that too. So cool. So we will keep moving through, just conscious of time. So that was our process with you. So I think I was meant to send another link in there as well. There was one on the partner visa specifically. Awesome. So and there's a lot of questions coming in now, just to take a note on like the if your qualification is recognised through the NZQA. Jump on through to the link and start the process. We can't give like a specific answer, like if from a certain country that would get you an NZQA as a guarantee. It's all on the qualification that you have. So do make sure you do that application independently, and then that will be the determining answer if you've got your NZQA or not. Cool. We're really tied towards the end now as well, which is exciting. So we're about 5 minutes, and then we're pretty much good to go. We will have Q&A towards the end, or after this, pretty much. So, Rach, you jump in and talk us through the steps again, so everyone's got that familiarity.
Yes. So, I mentioned it earlier on, but so we're really if you guys register up with us, so definitely complete those surveys. So we've got your details, so we can make contact. That's the most important step. Otherwise we won't know to contact you and help you out. So so definitely get those surveys down with us as well. So the Prospero compliance. So once you've done that, you send through your CV. We make contact. You have a chat with us. We then run through what it's going to look like for you in New Zealand. Touch base with things we've already spoken about tonight. We will go through your NZQA, your registration, whichever way that is, and you would build that rapport and that relationship with you. Ideally, if you guys could get on those NZQAs and then start that process, that'd be fantastic. But if not, that's fine. We will just tailor it through to your process of when you get approved. Once you've got the NZQA, we speak about it, go through your teaching registration. Everyone's different, so timescales, between the 4 to 12 weeks. Once that's happened through, you'll then go forward for your visas, whichever way that goes, your partner visa, your the accredited working visa, or the working holiday visa. Then basically what happens from there is we get chatted with you and your consultants. So with your consultants, they'll get communicated with you, build that rapport. We can start then the interview processes, ideally over this side of the world, but then also when you get over there. So for the accredited working visas, like we mentioned, you do need the offers before we can begin. But that's fine. We can facilitate those interviews and then move on from there. But we chatted about the police vettings and then the ED pay. So once you're all set up, we talk to you, we get you passed on to your consultants, interviews done, job offer, flights booked, and off you go. It's nice and simple, but we help you along the way. We contact you. We have the communication. We're always available. So that's like your biggest support network, really.
Amazing. Thanks so much for that, Rach. And that's pretty much like towards the end of the webinar now as well. So the biggest thing for that, like that post-placement support, the interview process, all these steps, it's going to vary, depends upon where you're at in the process too. And yeah, as mentioned, we just want to really emphasize that as a part of the follow-up, getting that surveys submitted to us, letting us know where you're at with your plans. And then we'll be doing our absolute utmost to best manage everyone's applications. But as mentioned, we further apologize if there is any delay in us getting back out to you, but make sure that when you're sending us your CV, NZQA, IQA, that's going to be the big step for us to be able to move things forward. But yeah, actually I sort of like took the slide here. I know you meant to drive that one.
You go for gold. I was answering questions that was perfectly fine. So good timing, actually.
Yeah, perfect. So so essentially just make sure you're emailing through. We've got our individual emails, but you can send it through the Teach New Zealand, whichever channel you go through. Your CV obviously is a really big one as well. Like I know we've really focused on the NZQA, the IQA, but the CV is another really, really big step. If you can please make sure that's sent to us as well. That's going to really help us help progress the application to further steps. Cool.
On that note, I would recommend as well, if you're already in contact with us, great. I would suggest even just reconnecting with the consultant you're already communicating with and just let us know that you're still looking, or, if your preferences have changed, or if there's any updates in terms of your application, whether it be NZQA, teachers registration, anything like that. Just reach back out to us so that, we can hopefully try and navigate your journey together for term 3, 4 and moving forward into next year as well.
Amazing. And I know a lot of people just said send the recording. So we definitely, if all things have gone so well with the recording, it is recording. So we will send that in the evening in the UK and South Africa time. I know a lot of people are, not to discredit everyone else, but that should come through to you. It's Wednesday night, Thursday, tomorrow, or Friday, hopefully at the latest. If you don't get it before Friday, means maybe there was the tech things we're working through. We would be looking to send it on the following Monday, but we'll do our absolute utmost to get it to you this week. That's our goal. So everyone can jump into the chat if you like. I know there's a lot of questions. I do hope that we did cover a lot. That fundamentally there is a lot of information. Like going through the NZQA, the IQA, the teachers registration, EdPay, visas, locations, compliance requirements, like moving countries. It's not as simple as just going, hey, I'm just going to jump on the plane, book a flight, and end up in Auckland and get a job down in Christchurch. There is a fair bit more to it, which we totally get. If you've got questions, do chuck them into the chat. Lots of thanks as well, everyone, which is really good. So thank you for everyone for tuning in. I'm just thinking. Trying to see if there's anything coming up in the chat that we could try and highlight, but it's
covered most things. There's a few sort of more personalized questions in there, and unfortunately we're not able to fully answer those, especially probably via this sort of channel. And that would be something that we could directly address with you individually. But there's some things also that we can't sort of navigate either when it comes to double checking the NZQA process and the qualification that you might hold. That's something you would need to chat with NZQA about when you go through that process of applying or checking that pre-approval.
Amazing.
And great feedback. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Yeah. So one of the things was just a question like, can we send the survey link? So that will come in the follow-up email. And then also we actually didn't put this in it, but spread the word, like if you know anyone else wanting to move, like we do have a referral bonus as well for referring candidates to come on once you've started working with us. You have to be here to receive that. And the candidate would have to, or teacher would have to get placed through us as well. I don't know why we didn't put that in the presentation, Ash and Rach, but we slipped up there. But yeah, spread the word, tell people in your network, that, to give them the links to apply for the NZQA too, send them the link to say, this is how you can work in New Zealand. And then if they're able to get that through, then yeah, for sure, send them, tell them to reach out to us, send us their details. And then if we want to, if they want to move to New Zealand, then we should be able to support them pending all the requirements we've said. There was a question from Brittany. How is the weather in New Zealand? I love that one. We haven't spoken too much about the weather. So Ash, what's the weather doing today in Christchurch? How's it looking out there?
Good question. Well, I left my house in the dark and arrived in the dark, so I'm not entirely sure what's actually going on out there. It was a little bit chilly, and I had a bit of frost on my car, so it is a bit cold, and I've got my puffer jacket, so that's what it's doing today. But yeah, yesterday was lovely, so nice and sunny. Not snowing yet down here. That'll probably be end of sort of June. But yeah, no, it was fine.
Yeah, it's a nice climate in New Zealand. Like it's not so it doesn't get like super hot. It doesn't get like super similar to like where I live in Victoria in Australia. Like it's quite a temperate climate. And yeah, generally speaking, especially if you're from the UK, the weather should be a little bit better. Having spent a fair bit of time, such as Rach living in the UK, so you will get an improve.
Definitely.
Yeah. You like the tropical weather, the North Island definitely a little bit more, especially as you're heading sort of around the Bay of Plenty to Auckland, and in Auckland being that it's the closest and the top end of the North Island, a lot warmer sort of that way. And if you like a bit more of the cold, then probably heading down south. But yeah, like we mentioned, just depending on sort of roles and hopefully you being flexible with trying to secure those opportunities. We can navigate that.
There's a question from Cindy, which actually went through the host and panelists. It didn't come through to everyone, but it talks about do we support with finding accommodation and housing and everything. So that would be something that you would need to do independently yourself. Would be fine the accommodation, but we can obviously give you the links of the certain websites. Like Trade Me, I know was one which popped up there. That those are the sort of things which we can provide you, like guidance and that holistic support. Because we just like we've always said throughout the webinar, it's not just about getting that placement; it's about supporting you through the journey. So yeah, definitely make sure that you look into all those links that we share, all the packs that we have, and then that should hopefully help you out a lot in sort of finding the right avenue to finding accommodation.
And that cost of living side of things, I can see we've got another question around that. That obviously depends on sort of your lifestyle and things like that, location. There's quite a few sort of variables when it comes to cost of living. As anything, obviously increases across the world and across New Zealand as well. So things are obviously rising in prices, and it depends on sort of that lifestyle that you're looking to live, whether you're traveling alone or traveling with family, already have family here that can assist you or friends as well. So there's a few different variables with that, and that'll change from person to person and location and things like that too. And then there was also a question around Māori language and if primary teachers are required to have knowledge and be able to do that when coming into a primary teaching role. That's not a requirement. Schools are not going to be expecting someone who's not from, hasn't had New Zealand experience and gone through those processes to understand completely te reo Māori, tikanga Māori. But obviously it's important for you to be open, and you're coming into a country that is very heavy in Māori and Pacifica communities, and so being able to adapt and learn and taking on professional development and growing those skills and knowledge is important.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, we've hit 6 minutes over. So I know there is a heap of other questions that are still coming through, but what we might do is potentially look to answer some of these within the follow-up, because I know obviously there is yeah, so we could literally stay on this call for an
Sure.
hour, as much as we would love to do that, and we do want to obviously develop that relationship with everyone. You know, I know it is getting quite late for the guys over in the UK and South Africa and on those other time zones. So, cool. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. Just like we said, send us your details. We'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. The NZQA, the IQA, make sure you're starting the teachers reg. Make sure you're starting that process. That can be a determining factor if we can progress, or so it is the determining factor, I should say. Amazing. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks, guys. Have an amazing night, day, depending on where you are in the world. And yeah, we'll get everything sent over to you all in the follow-up. But it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Ka kite.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you later.